Well, we started a couple seconds late, but thank you all for joining me tonight to talk about Ronnie. So I'm gathered tonight with and family of Ronald Dumas. Ronnie was last seen on December 15th, and at first authorities said that Ronnie had skipped away. He had left this life. But we later found out that Ronnie actually was abducted from Huntsville, Alabama. And this has been in the press. This has been um, definitely in the media a good bit. I think a lot of people know this story, but we've only had like a minute and a half at a time to really share his story. So I wanted to just get everybody together tonight and really, dive into who Ronnie is and just let all of you kind of share who he is to you, some of your favorite moments with Ronnie, and just take our time and get together and be together. I've spent my time with each of you individually, spent a lot of time with each of you actually, but it's not often that we get together. So it's kind of, it's a good time for us to sit down and do this. So tonight with us, well, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce everybody or let you guys introduce yourselves. So, what I'll do is just ask you to share with us how you first met Ronnie. And Shakira, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. Um, as Troy said, I'm Shakira. I am the mother of Kai. I'm not Kai, of Ronnie's oldest son, Kai. And how I met Ronnie was funny. We were both working at a restaurant called Chili's, here in Huntsville, and I was a hostess, and he started out as being like a buster. He was cleaning tables. And I just remember laughing at him because if you know him, he's kind of OCD. He's like a germaphobe. So after every table he would clean, he would stop and pull out hand sanitizer and lotion. So he would sanitize his hands and then he would moisturize his hands. So I would pick on him like, you just about to go clean another table and get your hands back dirty. And that's just how we even started like laughing and talking at work. And we just started out as good friends. I was a homebody and he was all over the place, loved being around people, socializing, going to parties, things like that. So he kind of picked on me for being a homebody. And he's like, I'm gonna start getting you out the house. So like I said, this was in 2009. So I was 19 when I met him. And he just started taking me around his college friends. And man, we would have a ball. And he introduced me to everybody. Literally, it was like I was one of the guys because I would be with him and all his friends. And then he was just so charming. He was so charming. He was a gentleman. So I started catching feelings. I started liking him, and I'm like, "You're my boyfriend." I just started calling him my boyfriend, and he's so funny. He's like, I never asked you out, right?" And I'm like, "I don't care. You're my boyfriend." So, down the line, he did end up asking me out and asking to be his girlfriend. Um, But yeah, that's how we met, was at Chili's, and I was joking on him for being OCD. I can't hear you, Troy.
Sorry about that. So this is something that we hear from basically everybody that has, that knows Ronnie. Everyone speaks of like the time that they spend with him is so intentional and it's so focused. So that definitely speaks to what everybody else says about him as well. Talia, I'd like to learn more about how you met Ronnie. I've never heard, so tell us who you are to Ronnie and how you all met.
Um, so I'm Talia, and I'm the mother of his two youngest daughters. And Ronnie and I actually met through a mutual friend of his. Um, I don't know, remember the year, but that's how we met. Our story was not as fun, but we just really developed a friendship. He, as Shakira mentioned, is very charming and has a gift of gab. Listen, that man can talk you into purchasing anything. So we just kind of got to talking about business because again, if you know Ronnie, he is going to find a way to talk about something business related. He is going to drag it into every conversation. So we started talking about ideas and things that we wanted to do with our life in the future, and we just really developed a dope friendship. We started dating a few years later. So
Well, you said Talia, and we gotta write this down. So
okay, cause listen,
Shakira calls you Talia, and she has literally the whole time. So I call you Talia because
it's okay.
we
I'm
talk
gonna
about you, and she's just country. So I
Yeah,
guess
I'm
that's where
country
it
and
comes from.
I'm sticking with I like Talia. I like Talia too, it's beautiful, but I just feel like
I'm gonna
Talia's
answer
like
either way.
down home
Talia.
country cooking. Talia. Yeah. It sound like you making
That's
some beach
funny.
cobbler.
Right.
So we're gonna move over to Deidre. Deidre, everybody on the internet basically knows that you know Ronnie because you've been in all the chats, and it's been an amazing thing to have you along on our journey because literally so much information that we now know that has been accurate came from people posting online, and you've been really instrumental in helping us find that information and making sure that we know it like when I say in real time, I mean definitely in real time. So tell me, how do you know Ronnie?
Well, again, my name is Deidre. I met Ronnie 18 years ago when my parents finally allowed me to go visit my sister in college. I was outside standing talking to one of the guys she introduced me to named Damar. And while we're in the midst of a conversation, here comes this little dude popping up in the middle. And instantly, I don't remember my conversation anymore. It was just immediately we hit it off. We've been close ever since and just had a relationship that is just extremely indescribable. I've tried plenty of times. I have no real way to explain our relationship, but he has been a part of my life for 18 years and a very important piece. So that's pretty much our backstory. But we just always stayed connected throughout the years, and it has been a huge thing for me.
So you said this little dude. I mean, he's like what, 5'2", I think.
5'5", I believe, like
Is it
five
five
five,
five? Yeah.
somewhere around there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's definitely short, and probably a little bit of a chick magnet, I think it seems like.
Yeah, he has, he just got that personality. Like
Yeah.
he said in the beginning, he has that way of kind of making you feel like an individual when you can be amongst a whole crew, but he has a way of singling you out and just making you feel seen and, feeling valuable. So it's a big part of who he is.
And now I'm gonna go over to Misha. Misha, you literally have become one of my favorite people on the planet. You call and check on me, and that's crazy because I don't really need to be checked on as much as you, but we check on each other. So we become great friends throughout this process, and a lot of times amidst tragedy, that's what happens. And so I want you to tell us how you know Ronnie and a little bit about your relationship with Ronnie as a friend.
Mm,
I have to say that what you work, what your calling is, you deserve to be checked on. You, Damian, James, the work that you guys do every day is something that I don't think that Shakira, Talia, Deidre, I don't think that anybody ever wants to come across you guys, but my God, I'm so grateful, um, that you guys do what you do. So there's a fight going on, sorry. But I met Ronnie, what did you say? When he moved to Huntsville from Chicago. My cousin, which is Deidre's sister, Laura, decided to come down here also, and they hang out and pack. I met Ronnie through my cousin Laura, and at that time I must have been about 16 years old, and I would go up to Alabama A&M and hang out with them, and I was so young they called me jailbait so that everyone knew that they couldn't talk to me, but I was hanging out. So I was I guess I kind of got, introduced to all of them and kind of came in as like a little sister, I suppose. But my friendship with Ronnie was very, like Deidre said, he had the ability to talk to you, to be a good friend, and to see you, and very wise. I think he got that. He would always repeat things that his grandfather would tell him. And some of them would be like funny and inappropriate sayings, but with a lot of wisdom behind it. And he kind of seemed like he was that for and not easily moved, but had alpha energy. And he could go there when he needed to, but he was very wise, kind of like a small giant. And he's just been a friend of mine ever since then. We acted together for a period of time when I met my ex-husband. We lived together. We were roommates. I moved back from Baton Rouge, back to Huntsville. We lived together for a time. That's when he met and fell in love with Shakira, and Kai came around. And then I got to meet Talia and fall in love with her because they were such good friends. And so he kind of made Huntsville his home, even though he was from Chicago. And his village is here, and that is who you see, in these women today. So yeah, I saw him last for the Mike Tyson fight. He came by the house and hung out, and I had a conversation with him afterwards to just clue on what was going on in life. And as always, he was um, a calm in the storm.
Wow. So this is something that we touched on in the press conference that we recently did when HBD announced that he was actually, in fact, abducted. But Shakira, you mentioned that Ronnie actually came from Chicago, but he moved to Huntsville and he made a life here. He built a family here. I think one of the most interesting things to me was that just hearing from you and Talia in the press conference and the way that you guys are in sync with each other. It's not really a competition, but you're really in sync with each other and y'all are supporters of each other. You have a beautiful relationship together and with him as a father. So I want to hear more about that. Chris Gotzi just joined. Gotzi's in the house. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up? Hey, everybody.
Hey, Chris.
So glad you're here.
Thanks for
So
having me.
glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it has.
So everybody was just kind of mentioning like how they met Ronnie and telling us
I've been
like their
watching it.
connection. So tell us about Ronnie, how you know.
I met Ronnie in July of 2012. I started working at. Sorry, my cat's going through something. But he was a server at Red Robin. I started working there, and I'm straight to the point. I don't go to work to make friends. And I'd been there for a couple of weeks, and somebody had said something to me, and it was one of Ronnie's friends. And I told the guy, and it was kind of kind of offended me a little bit. And I told the guy, I was like, hey, I was like, we didn't do something about it, but I have to clock out first. And Ronnie overheard me, and he kind of liked that remark, and he came, he laughed and made a comment about it, and he was like, you know what, I mess with you now. He's like, I was kind of skeptical about you, but the way you said that and the way you handled that, that was perfect. And like from that point forward, he was just, we were buddies. And then we
Wow.
then we started running together, just going to the bars, going to Weston, and had a lot of the same mutual friends and whatnot. So
Four horsemen.
So, all right, Talia and Shakira, let's break this down for people who don't really know what's up as far as the relationship that you guys have, like as a cohesive family, but to share, the father of children and how Ronnie picks his kids up on the weekend. I mean, this has really impressed me. I don't think I've ever really seen a family like this, so beautiful. And Talia, you said in the press conference it's okay to think that a man will go out and buy diapers and formula and come home to his family. It's okay to think that a man will see his children on weekends. We know now that he dropped his 12-year-old son off at Chuck E. Cheese the night that Ronnie was abducted. And, he didn't know that that's the last time, they didn't know that's the last time they were going to see each other in that moment. So tell us more about your family structure and Ronnie's parenting style, because I love it.
Okay, so I'll start with how it even came about. So Talia's, like I said, like we both said, we both started out as just being friends with Ronnie, and that's typically how it starts. If you are friends with him, and after a while, it's just gonna be like that attraction. He's gonna draw you in. But so me and Ronnie had split up, and he had moved back to Chicago for some time, and I had known Talia for years to be a friend of Ronnie, and she was so reliable, very trustworthy. There it would be times that we would have a birthday party for Kai, and she would show up with supplies, chairs, food, whatever we needed. And a part of me, I'm wanting to be like, girl, but then at the same time, it's like, wow, like she really cares. She's showing up. She doesn't have to do that. So it's like, okay, put your pride to the side, Shakira. Obviously, she loves your son, so I just had to move on from that. But like I was saying, Ronnie had moved to Chicago. Um, I want to say maybe that was around 2000, either 14 or 15. He went back to Chicago for about 2 years. And for me, going from him seeing Kai almost every day and picking him up every single weekend, that was difficult. That was difficult on him, and it was difficult on myself and Kai as well. But Talia stepped in out of nowhere, and I remember being reluctant at first, but Kai was asking me about her, and he called her TT Talia, and he's probably like 4 or 5, and he's like, can I see my TT Talia? Can I go with my TT Talia? And she was asking for him. So I'm like, okay, it's obvious that they have a bond. It's obvious that she does have his best interest at heart. So I started to allow her to come and pick Kai up. And she was taking him to do crafts and just all types of places. She would take him to Home Depot. He would learn about using tools and building stuff. So I fell in love with her. And Ronnie was a big part of that too, because he's all about community. He's all about making sure that, like, he's the type of dad that he understands in order for my kids to be okay, the mom's got to be okay. Whether that be mental, emotional, financial, whatever it is, he understood that. So he was a big part of that too. And he was happy to see that we were getting along so well. But yeah, um, Talia picked up, she kicked in like just it was automatic for her. And I love that about her. And we've been close ever since. So birthday parties, Christmases, Thanksgiving, all that, we spend them together as much as we can. If we're all in the same city, we spend them together.
One video that we actually, it's the only video that I have in my possession of Ronnie. It was Christmas for you guys. And I mean, I thought my kids have a pretty big Christmas, but whoa, you guys do it right. Y'all show out for Christmas.
Yes,
This
he's all
last
he's all
Christmas,
about. We call him literally. We call him Super
Super
Dad.
super dad
that's great.
all the time. Yes.
I mean, he is a super dad. And Shakira, you have another child who happens to be my best friend.
Yes, she
Literally,
loves Troy.
I love her too. But what does she call Ronnie?
So that's her Uncle Ronnie. And she can't comprehend that he's her Uncle Ronnie, but that he's also other kids' daddy. So he literally has to, or she will literally try to fight his daughters off.
There was there was one time he came in with everybody, with all the kids, a couple months. I want to say it was maybe August or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it was just him and 5 kids or 4 kids. Yeah, 4. And he was just handling himself. I was helping out too, but he had his thumb on the whole thing. He had them all under control, and they were having a good time. I hooked them all up with cards, and he was just having a good old time. But at the same time, it was kind of a break for him too, because I was taking care of the table, taking care of the kids, but you know he was doing his old daddy thing for everybody, and his being Uncle Ronnie.
He
Well,
loves being Uncle Ron. Like
Ronnie's dad,
absolutely loves it. Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say his dad did not, he, I guess, was not able to join us tonight, but I've spent a lot of time just talking to him, and I can see why Ronnie's such a good dad because his dad's amazing. He's a great father. He's a good man. I've kind of gotten to know him, called him tonight to invite him to join us, and he said, "Oh, I was getting ready to call you." So I think we think about each other a good bit. I try to keep up with him, keep him updated about the case as much as as much as we know. Um, but so to take this back, and for people that are kind of just getting to know this story, Ronnie's a real estate agent and he's a father of 3. That's been in the media a lot, like just this real estate agent, this father of 3, but he was so much more than that. He was last spoken to on the phone on the night of Sunday, December 15th, around 10 p.m. And then his vehicle was impounded by the Tennessee Highway Patrol the following morning, just before 7 a.m., where it was found abandoned, and it was actually blocking traffic. So it was in the kind of towards the middle of the interstate on the left lane, and it was blocking traffic. And then, police have been seeking information in this case, but at first they didn't really take the family seriously. They said that there was nothing to see here, that he just skipped out, he started a brand new life, and of course, all of you said that that was not true, and then that was later confirmed. Godsey, you were one of the last people to talk to him. What
Yeah,
time did you talk to Ronnie that night?
he called me at 10:12. He called me at 10:12. And he said he was on his. He asked me what I was doing. I told him I was at work. I work at Dave and Buster's, and he told me he was gonna come have a beer with me. He was asking what I was planning on doing after work, and that was kind of sent to me, insinuating that maybe me and him should link up or have a beer and talk about the upcoming week because we had something planned that Tuesday. Um, and there was just kind of thing where I was looking forward to it, and obviously it didn't go that way. But just to know that he was across the street at Mid City, that he was that close. I mean, I was kind of relieved to know that he was at least there then. But this
Yeah.
things have come to pass, so still don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've been over at the Mid City Liquor and you literally can see where you work from there. So, you mentioned to me that it sounded like some people were in the car with him at the time that you talked to him. You could tell he was in the car and there were
Yeah.
some people in the background, right?
Yes, there was at least 2, and there was one
Yeah.
time where he kind of got off the phone to talk to them, and I didn't hear what they were saying. I think he was trying to talk them into coming to see me. or something like that. Like they were like kind of like, nah, we don't want to go. He's like, nah, just go there, and I'm trying to have a beer and talk to him for a second, and yeah, that's what it
And
kind
then
of
you
felt like.
and then you sent him an invite to Dumas. You've been wanting to do Dumas for a long
Yeah,
time.
I started a group chat. Me and him is something. I mean, we'd always plan on having something, getting a whole bunch of guys, friends together. A lot of my friends know each other through mutual friends. Just be a co-mingling of all type of guy friends. Just around the holidays, just kind of have like a little theme, a reason to get together and drink and have a good time, kind of thing. And that was kind of his thing. Like that was something he enjoyed. Um, and it was something that to me it was like he was like the I'm sorry, he was gonna be kind of like the guest of honor kind of thing, because you know anytime that he shows up to something, to me, like just how you said before, he has intent in his actions. When he's there for somebody, he really wants to be there, not because he has to be, but because he really wants to be there for him.
Right. So the one person we have not introduced yet that is with us is somebody I'm extremely thankful for. Shakira, I know you've worked very closely with James. He's your private investigator. James Andrews from Magna Investigative Group of Huntsville, Alabama. James, I'm glad you joined us tonight. You've become a friend of mine. You've kind of become family to this family. We talk to you literally every day, all hours of the day. You always answer back. You always show up. You've conducted your own searches. You mentioned in the press conference that you were trying to bridge the gap between the family and HPD with just communication, very simple, but weren't really able to do that. Can you just give us like a little rundown of your experience from the time that you got involved to where we are now, and what you tried to do, where you think you've been successful, haven't been successful? Just take us through it.
Yeah, I had reached out because I had just been seeing the Facebook post and a little bit of stuff on the news here and there. But from what I was reading on Facebook and the comments and stuff, it seemed like that the family, didn't feel like they were getting any answers, and they felt like HPD wasn't taking it serious. And I had initially reached out and sent a couple of Facebook messages, just to, I think, to Shakira and maybe Deidre or Deanna. And then a couple of them wrote me back, and get referred me to you, basically, Troy, and reached out to you and had a long discussion with you there that one night, and you kind of relayed the same message, that it was just the aggravation of not feeling like there was any communication. Uh, I just left the Huntsville Police about a year and a half ago and started doing PI work, so I knew that I would know a lot of the investigators that are over there, and so I came in, very basically just volunteering. I thought that the family had already hired a private investigator, and so I said, hey, if you know who you've hired, and I'll reach out to them, and I'll see how I can help in any way, whatever, especially with the communication. And so I really thought, like, couple 2 or 3 hours of my time and help it out. And you know it obviously has turned into you know going on. That was end of December, I think the last week of December. um so obviously it kind of snowballed and turned into a lot more than that. um when I initially met with y'all around the 1st of January, and then I started reaching out to one of the investigators in particular that I knew was on the case. Uh, I knew that even though I came from that world, that they're still not going to share details with me, and we all understood that. We talked about that the first time we all met. We knew that they're not. I think they were under the impression that we were expecting them to call us, at 4 or 5 o'clock every day and say, "Hey, here's everything we've done today, and we've talked to this person, and now we suspect this person, and we're looking into this, naming names and places and all that stuff." And uh, I told them that was not what the expectations were. Um, and so we're talking to them initially. Uh, I could just tell that, they were still, I guess, 50-50 on whether he had walked away, uh, or whether something bad had happened. And they kept saying, well, I mean, people just walk away sometimes. We don't have, there was no, there was nothing in his car that would indicate that, that anything bad had happened. And so sometimes people just walk away. Sometimes people want to start a new life. Uh, we think he's probably in Mississippi. We think he's probably with a girl in Mississippi. And just stuff like that. And then every time I would talk to the family, they're like, "That's absolutely not." And of course, I didn't know Ronnie at all. Um, so the only version I got at that point, was from Troy and Shakira, and and then started talking to some more of the family and the friends, and like I've said, every time I've been interviewed, I think about this. Every single person I've talked to has said the exact same thing, that Ronnie was not the kind of guy that would just walk away, and um, it wasn't making sense to me, and it was just as aggravating for me, I know, as it was for the family, that it seemed like the police was, still sticking with that narrative. Um, Obviously, I don't know what was being said behind the scenes. I don't know if they were having different discussions amongst themselves, but the information that they were relaying to us was that, you know, sometimes people just walk away. We're
Well,
going to
they're
look
right.
into it, but sometimes people just walk away. Yeah, and they are right, but when you
I
have the
mean,
whole, every single person that knows this man is telling you, it didn't make no sense.
yeah, I mean, that's the point here. So, they're right. Sometimes people do walk away, and, people have a right to be missing. There's people that are in bad relationships that are toxic and they don't want to be found by that person. There's people that, disconnect from their parents or their family, and sometimes responsibility gets to be too big and people will go and start a new life. But everybody, like you said, everybody said Ronnie, number one, would not leave his kids. And number two, the most important thing to Ronnie is family. And so, when you're asking a total stranger to find somebody they don't know, I think the family's input and their knowledge and their opinion is something that should be valued. So, James, if they had like taken that seriously right off the bat, do you think that we would be in a different place today, or do you think we would be where we are regardless?
No, my initial thoughts are, obviously, I do feel like we would be in a different place now that we know more details about this entire incident. And as we know, and I don't know how much has been put out there. As we know, this incident just seems like was the beginning of several incidents that will come out eventually. But it seemed like the whole thing just kind of snowballed into, it has affected multiple families at this point, multiple people. um but it's hard for me to say, what they should and shouldn't have done, because we don't know what they did. They weren't sharing any information, so we don't know. uh we don't know what they did. As
Yeah,
far, I
and
mean, we know some details, but we and what they've released to the media, but we don't know, when they started, exactly doing certain things that we know should have been done. We don't know when those were done. um Stuff like that. But whether, if something happened, something bad happened to Ronnie that night, or obviously something did happen bad to Ronnie that night, but if, whatever whatever the outcome was of whatever happened that night might not could have been changed. But obviously the communication could have been better. The family's understandings and feelings could have been taken into consideration more. One thing that's funny to me is that, we've put this in the media about the communication, and I don't know, I haven't heard from any of the family that anybody has reached out since then to try to help with that, or try to, uh, kind of repair that. And that's odd to me. I mean, why hasn't somebody reached out? And maybe we
yeah,
didn't do the best job from the start, but let's try to repair that.
As
Um,
you mentioned, we weren't asking investigators to like open the case file. We certainly just were trying to get an established timeline of consistent communication. And no, James, I don't think anybody has reached out to the family since then. Shakira was the point of contact, but then that was removed. So, yeah. And as far as HPD goes, I mean, I do think they've been working on this. And of course, we have no idea what they've done. And some of that is to protect the integrity of the investigation and the prosecution. And that is very important. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely hurtful to the family and it's definitely offensive when they won't communicate and they just keep saying nothing happened to him. So now they're saying that he has definitely been abducted. He's in danger of bodily harm or death. And, apparently they're taking this case very seriously now, but we have no idea what they're doing or what they've done since. So I want to go back around the table here. And, that was kind of a serious position to talk about, but I wanted to get that in there. But let's get into kind of the fun part of this.
sorry to bring it down.
No,
Well,
I
may
mean,
I just chime in and just add something on top of that, Troy?
mhm.
I would like to just offer that, Shakira in being able to meet with the investigators, 2 weeks after his disappearance. One of my questions was, do you have a timeline? And the fact that they were not able to articulate a timeline, a resemblance of one, 2 weeks after he had been registered into the National Missing Persons Database, that's scary. And I wasn't anticipating them not even having any resemblance of a timeline nor hypotheses beyond he walked away.
Well,
And,
actually,
and
it
that
doesn't
was
seem like he was registered according to the information that they put the after December 25th, but I digress.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that, Talia.
it feel very small and very, very dismissed. And that was not encouraging, the fact that, they are an entity in which I would expect to go to for support and expertise. And the support and expertise is private individuals such as yourself and James and the others who have offered assistance. And if you cannot go to HPD to help in something like this, I just don't even know what to do.
Well, that's who
So
you're supposed to go to, and that's the agency that is enlisted to protect and serve the city of Huntsville, Alabama. And Talia, you're right. They didn't list him in NamUs until December 26th, but I think Shakira said they didn't even know what NamUs. Shakira, did you say they didn't know what NamUs was?
No, they didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and to date, they've only mentioned him one time on their social media, but they mentioned shoplifters and they mentioned, people that steal candy bars from the dollar store, and things like that, but they've only mentioned Ronnie one time. So, we could do a
And
whole
what's the other system? Is it NCIC?
NCIC. Yeah, so NCIC,
NCIC. That's the one where I was speaking to a HPD investigator when the primary investigator was off duty. And she stated that she found it odd. I guess the initial police report, however they did the police report, she asked if they got a written statement from me, and I told her no. She said, okay, that's odd. And then she let me know that however the missing persons report was done, that um he wasn't put into NCIC. So she did get that done. Okay, now I remember. I was calling to let them know that the car was found because they didn't even know that the car got found in Tennessee. We found that out because the letter was mailed to Talia, which was his previous address. And so I'm calling them like, do y'all know this? And they're like, no. And then so I'm like, that's weird that you all weren't alerted. And she's like, that's because either he wasn't correctly put into NCIC or he wasn't put in there at all. But either way, the people in Tennessee said that if he was put in there how he was supposed to be in there, it would have alerted him once they saw that vehicle. And also,
Yes.
when I talked to officers after that, I did a complaint with internal affairs. And when I said that to them, they said, oh, we're not sure that the car would have alerted the system. And I said, and they recorded me. I said, yes, it would have. The people in Tennessee said that it would have. So I think also there's a lack of training or
Training.
experience in some of these situations with missing persons. But what I do hope that the law enforcement agencies learn from this, if anything, is some tact, courtesy, and then I
But
understand that in an investigation you need to be open minded, because I was even willing to be open minded. By the things that they are saying, I'm like, okay, let's just try to think, put myself into their shoes. But to wholeheartedly and to be so repetitive and just pushing that same narrative of people walk away or people walk away every day. And I think maybe they didn't understand that by you all telling us that that's your thought process. To us, it comes off as, I'm not going to investigate this as if he could possibly be in danger, because I just wanna find him to prove y'all wrong. That's really what I got from the primary
yeah,
investigator on this case. When I
yeah.
asked him if he goes out on foot ever, because every time I asked him a question, his response was, "Oh, I sent an email. Oh, I called them." And I asked him, I said, "Okay, do you ever go out on foot?" And his response was, "Oh, yeah, I went to his job."
We know James goes out on foot. We know
And,
that.
And
So
I'm like, if something bad happens to somebody, what are you gonna learn from their job and going through their locker? He was looking
yeah.
for something to try to corroborate
Yeah.
his story of starting a new life, which is ridiculous because you still haven't provided any evidence of why you thought that.
But how
and
is he going to
Shakira,
start a new
These
life without
systems.
shoes? He's walking barefoot to
Or
this new life.
money. They said $7,000 was in his bank account and remained in his bank account.
and I
And
would
that's
just like
just
to say,
one.
Shakira, do you remember when we were chatting with them on New Year's Eve? And I asked the investigator, is there any presence of organized crime or trafficking in
Oh, and they
Huntsville?
act
And he
they
said, why would you ask that? Why?
yeah.
He said, why would you ask something like that? I said, well, I've watched all these nutty movies and they have, trafficking going on, and this is now the biggest city in Alabama. And like, are you just I'm just asking if you're confident that there isn't like organized crime or trafficking here. They were so dismissive.
Mhm.
They were so dismissive. And for it to come out that there are warrants out for people who have been convicted and found guilty of human
Of this
trafficking.
very same thing.
And then you don't
Yeah.
even come back to say, my bad, you were right.
So I want to talk about these systems a little bit. We mentioned NamUs, we mentioned NCIC, and I kind of want to break that down for people, because if people see this and they're in the same situation, they may want to know what to ask for or what they have going on. So NCIC is a internal database that police use, and it's got kind of like tags in it. So you can tag certain things. You can tag when people are when another agency wants to make contact with an individual. So let's say, for instance, somebody's been entered into NCIC and there's a bolo on them from Huntsville Police Department, and they get pulled over for not wearing their seatbelt in Houston, Texas. Well, Houston, Texas authorities are going to run that person in their system when they pull them over, and they're going to see that Huntsville Police Department wants to talk to them, or they want to, check on them, and that is, they'll also see if they have warrants and things like that. So if he had been an NCIC, I feel like, if they had run that tag and the car was registered to him, then in fact, when Tennessee Highway Patrol ran that tag, they could have gotten that information and known that this was related to a missing persons case. And then NamUs is the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. HPD is not the only one that doesn't really know about the system. It is a government system. It's something that we always ask for right away when we come into cases, but I think HPD wasn't, primarily using that system. But when I first came in contact with you guys, you were on Facebook and you were asking, like, why is the media not reporting on this? And we didn't even have a flyer yet with a police logo on it verifying this was a missing persons case. And so the media has to be able to authenticate a case to be able to report on it. And that had not yet happened. And it wasn't until, I spoke to investigator Stephen Gibbs, by the way, is the lead investigator. He's been very proud to put his name on every part of this, every poster, every post that they've, every time they've put something into the media, his name's attached to it. I talked to him in the beginning and he didn't put him into NCIC. It was another investigator that eventually did that, even though Stephen Gibbs is the lead investigator. But NamUs is an interesting system. I actually have another case where a kid went missing and never heard from again. He supposedly got on a Greyhound bus, was never heard from again. But then also there was a body that was found in Georgia, and nobody knew the identity of that body. And we were actually able to link that unidentified body to the missing persons case. And now that family has closure. So morgues and medical examiners use NamUs to list people and to find records of people that may possibly have gone missing to unidentified persons. So both of these systems are incredibly important, but NamUs is public. So the media can go there, they can verify a case, and they can start reporting on it right away. I do want to give credit to Huntsville's legacy media market, WAFF, WH&T, and the others there. They've done a great job at keeping this story alive. In fact, today, I believe Deanna did an interview because today marks 2 months since Ronnie went missing. So, they've done a great job at keeping this story alive, but it took a while to get it into the media. So, all right, so let's go through. Let's talk about Ronnie. What are some of your favorite things about him? What are some Ronnie isms? Just what are the things that stand out to you most, or the things that you miss the most? I mean, you guys have been through Christmas without him. You went through New Year's without him. You've gone through every single day without him. I know many of you talk to him every single day. What's that been like, and what have you missed the most about your interactions with him for the last 60 days?
Breathe, Shakira. Breathe.
Listen, so I'm the crashed out baby mama. I say I was. But yeah, he was all about growth and my image and maturing. And what Talia is referencing is what he always told me when I got up in a roar, upset, wanting to lash out. He would just literally say, "Breathe." So much so that that Christmas he got me that bracelet. He got me a bracelet
Yeah.
that said "Breathe," and it's beautiful. It's like a rose gold color, and it has "Breathe" on it. And when he first gave it to me, I thought he was being funny. I wanted to flick it across the room. But that advice has gotten me so far, and I'm sorry. I really appreciate that he saw the bigger person in me, even when I didn't. So before I got ready to crash out or make a bad decision, or in the moment of that, I would call him like, "I'm about to crash out, Ronnie."
He'd be like, I need to go check on Shakira.
It,
I'd be
it
like,
could
all
be
right.
2 o'clock. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning. He could be at work.
Yep.
Literally, it was drop everything. Call Craig's in trouble. He's coming.
He'd be like,
So
all
I really appreciate that about him. Like, he was all about his village and his community and making sure that we were okay. So that's my favorite thing about him. And then also, he had a completely different type of parenting style. He
listen.
He was completely against, the way we were
Thanking.
raised. So, I will say definitely that has changed how we parent.
Mhm.
Talia's very open minded as well. And as far as just like talking to the kids, getting an understanding, coming to their level, also understanding that they are learning just like we are. This is their first time here on earth. So the
Mhm.
things that we've been dealing with for 30 some odd years, for these kids, that's their first time experiencing that. So I really appreciate Talia and Ronnie both for just showing me that, sometimes you got to come to a kid's level and you got to really get a deeper understanding of the things that they're doing.
Yeah, patience was real big with him. Like he's real big with him. Like, okay, gentle parenting is cute. Um, but Shakira and I were raised with spankings. We received those. But his parenting style really did cause me to take a pause and to ensure that I'm listening to the children and to hear them and see what they're trying to say. And sometimes I'll be ready to snap, and that is not what they're trying to say at all. I'm like, okay. So I like that we have been able to balance, because I think Shakira and I's um it's okay to pop philosophy couple couple with his let's talk about it philosophy. We 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 got some seemingly level-headed kids.
Yeah,
So
and
I
Kai's
love
like a
it.
little Ronnie, right? Isn't Kai like a little entrepreneur and he
Oh,
looks like Ronnie?
He's a
Smart.
good
So
business,
the
I'm
the
telling you.
first time that I met Kai, he was probably, I think, 2 or 3, and he was and I think Shakira might. I know she probably remembers this, but Kai's sitting down. He's got a bib on, and he's got spaghetti, and he's got 2 forks, and he's like just going at it with both hands, and he doesn't matter if he's
yes,
missing or
Chris,
not.
he
He's just
still
like,
eats like that though. He still eats like that at 12.
he does. A Viking.
and it was just great because I look at Ronnie, and I see him, and I'm like, dude, that's you, like that's you, dude. And he's just proud, like a proud daddy moment, and he was just laughed at him. I laughed with him, and I just, that was one of my favorite things when I met Kai. That's just both hands.
That is definitely his most prized possessions in this world is his children. He would literally take them to showings.
Yes.
Like I would be getting ready to get off work and I'm like, you just leave the kids with me. And he like,
Mhm.
no, they're
Mhm.
they're going to the showing with me. He would show houses with them and dress them up. I had to have on the button up, tucked in, pressed out shirt, literally. And he would take all of them with him.
He really
Deidre,
wanted them to understand what he's trying to build for them. Like he
Hmm.
wanted them to see him work towards that. That's why it's absurd. Like he didn't walk away. He's way too intentional about creating this legacy for his children and ensuring that they are a part of it and to see it grow.
Yep.
He didn't just easily walk away from that. It isn't a contentious moments between his baby mamas. Oh my God. No, like that wasn't it. Even though that was
Mm-mm.
displayed. It's like, no, we actually get along. We're okay over
Yeah.
here. Surprise, surprise.
Deidre, you've talked a lot about how he was like your person. Like you guys, and I have one of those people too. Like when I get in the car, I'll call. Usually it's Jen Wood who has also helped us a lot. In this case with her reporting, she's an investigative journalist as well, and she works these cases a lot. And so her and I have kind of put our heads together. But we talk constantly, when I get in the car to go places, I'll usually call her and kind of check up on things, and we talk a lot. So, w- tell me more about like how Ronnie is that for you, and how you guys kind of pass time together on the phone and with the kids. He'll be with the kids, and you talk to him. I want to hear more about that.
um, yeah, he is just that guy. Like, we had an understanding. I'm really big on being convenient. I know it sounds weird, but I'm big on being convenient. So with as much as he works, I'm the texter, he's the caller. So um, I would always leave it open for him to call, or we'll text throughout the day. Um, but yeah, I mean, no matter what's going on, it'll be like, "Hey, good morning, Grand Rising. How you doing today?" "Oh, I'm good." "All right, great." We'll check on each other throughout the day, say goodnight at, when night came, and he was really, he is really he's like a rock for me. I could always, actually, it's so crazy because I know a lot of people don't really have that, but he knew if I was going through something before I could even say anything to him. Like, I never had to say anything. I could literally just get on the phone, or I could text him something, and then he'll be like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Or there'll be times he'll just pop up and say, "Smile." I'm like, "How the heck didn't you know I was smiling right now? Like, what? You got cameras on me?" But that was his thing, always smile. And I'm like, "All right, I'm smiling now," or something. And it's just like he was always tuned in, tapped in, and it's amazing. And I always told him, one of the things that I really treasured and one of the things that I really valued is the fact that he always has so much going on in life, but he always found time to communicate. And that was big for me because I am the type of person, I love to see how people value different people. And the fact that he could take even a moment of time, reach out, call, text, we video chat, that meant the world to me. And so, and yes, we video chatted with the kids all the time. I absolutely love y'all kids. Listen, Riley is freaking hilarious. She is hilarious. And Gwen, she like her daddy, just like her daddy. And so is Kai. They all have their individual personalities, but you can just see him in each and every one of them. And I'm gonna throw Kendall in there too, because shoot, that's a daughter. No, not saying anything to anybody, but yeah, that's a daughter. Like she was always there, and she was like, "This is my Uncle Ronnie." When we be on the phone, "This is my Uncle Ronnie. Who is this? Is this Amor?" Amor, because Ronnie calls me Amor. He's called me Amor for years. And so she'd be like, "Is this Amor?" And I'm like, "Yes." And so he'd be like, "What do we think about Amor?" while we're on the phone. "Well, this is my Uncle Ronnie. So, I don't know." And then she'll just sit and talk on the phone, and her and Riley would be trying to fight with who's gonna be right next to him. And it just was it's always been very interactive. And I always love seeing people interact with their kids because it says a lot about who that person is and how that person's character is. Kids ain't gonna lie. They're not gonna lie. And so, my kids fell in love with him. We were video chatting. We'll do like movie trivia with him and Kai, or the kids and him and Kai will play games together. That was fun. Love that. He sent freaking money because my daughter won the trivia. He decided to send money for her to get 2 dozen donuts, even though I don't even feed her donuts. But I'm like, you know what? Whatever. He was like, "Well, I sent it. I told her she can have it, so you got to go get it." Like, you can't make me, you can't take my word away from me. I'm like, you know what? Whatever.
You could never take his word away. I'm
Girl,
sorry to
yes.
interrupt. He was big on that. He would
He
not
don't
lie to
play.
those kids. So
Do
your daughter
not
needs those
play.
donuts.
Girl,
Yeah, and me
stop
and
me.
Talia are paying for that because literally
Yeah.
we're thinking we're saying something to hush them up, and they remember like,
Oh, yeah.
Mom, you said."
You can't lie to
Yeah.
us. He was not gonna lie to them.
And he
Teacher,
was just really big on that. And a couple things that he would say to me that always stick with me is, one, you have to choose happy every day. That always stuck with me. I went through a very, very hard time this past year. And he was there for me in a way that I know nobody would ever understand. Like, it's just, I mean, I'm sure you ladies could, but he's been there for me. And he would always tell me, you have to choose happy. You have to choose happy. There was one day I looked out the window, and for the first time ever in my life, I saw a hummingbird flying over my garden. And I completely flipped out. I was like, oh my God. He just happened to be on the phone. I'm like, there's a hummingbird in my garden. It's so pretty. He said, oh, you're choosing happy today. I see it. I love it. And I'm like, man, I was just telling you about the hummingbird. But that was one of the things, like, this is him. Like, didn't I tell you? And then the other thing, like, I'll always tell him, like, how you always have so much going on. And it always seemed like something to happen too. He always has so much going on, and then something always happened. They work through, they get through, they fixing it. And I mean, y'all be on it. I love it, on it. And I would tell him, like, man, I don't know how you do it every day, all these different meetings, working the job, having, you go with your kids, you got all of this stuff going on. He was like, one foot in front of the other.
Well,
And
you
I will
touched on
never
it.
forget that. Mhm.
You touched on a couple of things that I have said, and I've never said this publicly, but I'm gonna say it tonight. So I stood in Ronnie's bedroom, and I looked around that room, and I thought to myself, he put literally everybody first. I don't think anybody knew that, Ronnie put himself out there as this super successful, and I'm not going to say he wasn't successful, but what I am going to say is he was not as successful as he portrayed himself. But he made everybody in his path successful. He put people in a mindset every day, and each of you have talked about that tonight, how he told you that you can do it, and he inspired you every day. Shakira has talked about moments where, like, she's been upset, and he literally would just park outside the house, get ready to leave, but he'd be like, I'm not leaving until you're okay. And another interesting thing is that when we went to pass out flyers, and I think this is the first indication that I knew something's up here with this family. Like, these are normal, amazing people that really love each other. And it's that Kendall's dad, who's Josh, he,
Mhm.
like, we couldn't even get to the cars fast enough. Josh had flyers on every windshield.
Yes.
And I was like, why is, like, the guy that she's with after Ronnie, why does he care? But he does, and he came and did the search with us too. So Josh is on my top fans list.
Yeah, they have
Um,
a bond as well because they
We
can
be at family
relate.
dinners and
They
everything. Like
they can
he's
relate
there.
because they both dealt with the crazy.
well, I don't think you're as crazy as you think you are, but I love you so much. We've become really close throughout all of this, and it's odd how that happens. But I told you the first night that I met you, I sat on your couch and I said, "We're strangers right now, but we'll
But
be
by
like
the end of
family
this,
by
we'll
the
be
end."
family, and we are.
Yeah. So Misha, you've known Ronnie for such a long time. That's kind of a consistent thing. Every time I run into somebody that knows Ronnie, I'm like, "Oh, how long have you known Ronnie?" And everybody's known him like 20 years or more. So, what has that been like for you? You know, you're part of the community. You know people in high places in Huntsville, and you've tried to push this case. You attended the meeting with HPD with Shakira. So, what is it like for you, trying to make a difference in this and being personally involved, and with it being somebody that you really care about?
Um, I would just like to say, so something that I've been thinking about when it comes to Ronnie, and I'm sorry for my emotion, y'all. Um, something that I've thought about this last summer, I was asking everyone that I knew for support for a certain candidate that I was running with that I thought would be great for our community. And Ronnie came out and he was talking with, we had like these neighborhood meetings, and I had this idea that if like we just band together as a community, like everyone on your street, then like we would all know one another and look out for one another, and you could talk to one another about issues, and like we'd have like this network. And so we modeled that out on the north side in North Huntsville. And Ronnie was at one of our neighborhood like meetings, and he saw me talking with a few different families that were from here. And it was very relational in that, oh, well, I know your aunt, I know your, it was just relational because my foundation is here in Huntsville. And he pulled me to the side afterwards and told me that that's what and I saw it in his eyes when he said he said, that is what I desire for my children here. And you see how he's built that out with his family, how he treats the people that he cares about, and I'm just so grieved. I'm just so grieved, and I'm scared.
James, you and I
I don't
don't know
know.
Ronnie, but in a way, I think we both feel like we do. We've spent so much time like with this family, and we've spent so much time getting to know you know his character and things about him. Do you feel connected with them like I do?
I do, and I feel like my biggest connection with him is the kids, because I can relate. I've got a 20-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 8-year-old, and just hearing the stories about uh, you know him and his kids and stuff, I can definitely relate. Um, and I think that was a lot of what drew me to this case was seeing the family on social media talking about his relationship with his kids.
Well, his relationship with his kids is definitely one of the most special things that I've ever seen. And I know it's stereotypical for Black men to not, be, an in-home father or to be missing from their kid's life. But this story definitely shows a testament that it's okay to believe a Black man would father his children. Ronnie never missed a weekend. In fact, he would leave his house on the weekends and he would go, spend the weekend with all of his kids. Um, it was it was something that I don't think can ever be replaced in their lives. I know they probably don't understand right now the full impact, but at this point, 60 days in, that has got to be tough. Shakira and I have talked a lot about how to dose that information to Kai, but Kai's 12. So Talia, how are you doing that with your girls, being that they're so much younger? One thing that you said in the press conference that, I mean, it crushed me to hear that your daughter sleeps with this picture, that, she falls asleep looking at it. When she gets up, she walks around with it. I mean, as a mother, sometimes we have to let our kids grieve, and we always want to like go and save our kids, right? We don't want them to hurt, but there's nothing you can do to take this pain away from those girls. How are you getting through this as their mother, and how are they taking this now?
Um, as I mentioned in the press conference, she is actually that day. I found out later that day that she had taken the picture to school and had asked for help. So she is now also trying to find her father. Um, it's difficult. It's really difficult for all of us with the children. Um, I have registered all of us for counseling. so that we'll be able to navigate this situation the best way possible. So all of the kids, as well as Shakira and I, we're in counseling or starting counseling soon so that we can manage this situation. They miss their father. And I know we keep saying this, but he spoke to his children every day. Every day he spoke to his children. His number is saved on their iPads. They can call him. Kai can call him from his phone. They text. They speak to their father every day, one way, one form or another, either through us or directly from them contacting him themselves. To
Well,
go a week was like, okay. 2 weeks was like, 60 days. We can't microdose them. They know something is wrong.
yeah,
And
at
they
this
are
point,
articulating as such.
I think counseling is a great idea. What's disappointing is that if HPD had taken this seriously in the first place and admitted that a crime could have occurred, then that would have made all of you
Yeah.
victims, and that would have, that would have opened up victim services to you guys from ALEA, Alabama's law enforcement agency. So, I remember one of my first conversations with Sergeant Chris Jackson, who's the public information officer at Huntsville Police Department. And he said to me off the record and privately, but I'm going to put it on the record tonight, that there was definitely some learning that they could do there at HPD. And I say that and I put it on the record tonight because I think Sergeant Jackson's a great guy for saying that. I just hope that people like Stephen Gibbs, who has really treated this family terribly. I hope that he also understands that some learning can be done, and it's not a fight between the family and HPD. It's just really important to open those services up to families and to listen to families and to consider what they're telling you. And Shakira, like you said, to be open-minded. You were willing to be open-minded, even though you knew it wasn't possible to think that he would just abandon his family. You thought, well, maybe if they know something I know or that I don't know, they could be right. And he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't in turn do the same for you. So I think that's played a big role in this. Hopefully they will learn from this investigation. But so far it doesn't really seem like they will, does it?
I'm
It
gonna
Can
be
depends
I say
hopeful.
something?
who goes missing next.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder who all is
Yeah,
missing in Huntsville.
this needs to come to an end now.
Yeah.
We
They
we
need
need
we need
we
to
we
nip
need
this in the bud now. And then also people, it's not okay for people to travel from out of state and come here and think this is a place to commit crimes and get away with it. That's not the message that we need to portray.
It feels like there's something way bigger in this story that even we don't know yet. The information that we gave to HPD a long time ago was some of the names of these individuals, and James had worked through some of that information, and you had been tagged publicly on Facebook, but you had never shared that post. But we have been made aware of some of these people being involved, and that information was shared with authorities right away. So the fact that they didn't take it seriously. And then when you look at the charges of Quintarius, I mean, he's been charged with human trafficking, commercial sales, and sex trafficking. And that's just a scary thing. This crime ring is interconnected through 3 states, possibly more than that. Who knows what is really at bay here, but it's a terrible situation that HPD just lets happen in their city. And I want to tell you right now, I don't feel safe in Huntsville. And Misha, when I met with her in the middle of the day, in the middle of Big Spring Park to do a media interview, she was nervous about walking back to her car, weren't you, Misha?
Yeah, I grew up here and I don't feel my eyes have been opened.
Yeah, and it's even more strange when it's a community where that's when it's even more strange. When I lived on a bad side of town, I expected that. But when you live somewhere and it's portrayed that it's safe and it's
Mid
calm and
city.
crime doesn't happen here, but then something major happens, it it literally sweeps you off your feet, and it throws you for a loop. And I'm to the point now that I make sure I'm alert everywhere that I go. Someone always knows where I am, and I'm making sure that I'm taking precautions to protect myself as well.
Well, I think that's smart considering that you don't have a police agency in your town that will do that. At this point, it's been 60 days. We know that other people, which we can't mention who, but we know, that other people have been named in this case. There's other people that it just kind of feels like bodies have stacked up in this case, which is crazy. That did not have to happen. But what does the family want? Like, what are y'all expecting from at this point?
My number one
Closure.
priority is for him to be home. That's my number
Yeah.
one priority over anything because everybody needs closure. His family in Chicago, they are just as concerned and upset and frustrated, and they've been heavily involved as well, but it's only so much they can do
Yeah.
across states. But the number one thing for on my behalf and what I feel like is the closure to know that he is home,
Yeah.
whatever condition that may be. Hopefully
Alive and well.
alive, but in whatever condition he's in, we just want him home. That's the number one priority. Second, every person involved. I don't care if it's the smallest involvement possible. Every person involved needs to be held accountable.
I couldn't agree more.
He said it best.
I do want to mention that we have a tips line that we set up in this case. So the police have asked for anybody to send their tips to them, but we don't know when those tips come through, and we actually have a $10,000 reward in this case. So, while I think passing those tips on to law enforcement is important, I do want people to know that when we get the tips at crimedesk.tips or through the tips line, that those immediately go to our private investigator. They also go to the main investigator, and the family doesn't see those tips. We keep that information private, and it just gets handed right immediately to investigators. So we encourage those tips to come through that. Also, investigators don't have $10,000. That is that is the family's $10,000, and that's been collected through donations from people in the community, and people that care. So, in order for us to pay out on tips, and that's not tips for information about who did this, that's tips leading to Ronnie.
Mhm.
Those tips really need to come to us. So that phone number is going to be 254-4240. People can also go to www.crimedesk.tips. And again, that number is 256-42 or 256-254-4240. And so we have some comments in our live from people that are watching. Ellis in Wonderland said, great channel. But she also said justice for Ronald Dumas. And that's another thing I wanted to say about the last name. So sometimes I say Dumas, sometimes I say Dumas. So Ronnie's dad says Dumas, and I do believe that is how he pronounces it. However, Godsey, open this up for us. Why does Ronnie say Dumas?
W.E. Dubois. Do you know
Yeah,
the
because of
do
that
you know,
author.
do you know the author if you know the author W.E. Dubois? It's kind of like a homage to that, to like the old pronunciation of it. Because like the probably the original pronunciation of Dumas was Dumas. So
Hmm.
he's
He's a
just going
French
back
last
to
name,
like
so it's
It's
he's
Dubois.
yeah,
going back
that's
to its
why.
roots. Like
Yeah.
him being a family man, he wanted that to be the start of how that name was said in his family.
And my son pronounces it that way as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's pronounced Dumas.
We've had this conversation plenty of times before, and I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad you explained that to me because I was not really sure what was up with that. But yeah, Ronnie says Dumas and his dad says Dumas. Nietzsche said, I remember Ronnie was big into business. He tried to convince me to buy Bitcoin back in 2009. If only I would have listened. Ronnie's always out there dropping good business advice,
For
right?
real.
Always talking about business.
Yeah.
Yes, that's his first priority.
Yes. He is
And
going to
then
create this legacy.
yeah. Ellis said, I'm a little behind in the live. Sorry if that's been answered. And that was in response to her asking about, do we know anything about the people who are suspected to have abducted him? And do we know any possible motive? So, James, can you answer that question?
Um, I mean, I think motive would be a guess at this point. I think we all have a pretty good idea what the motive probably was. Just and then it was kind of confirmed with, what these people's prior convictions and prior charges are. They seem like they're the kind of folks that like to snatch up folks and rob them and uh so but it's speculation. I think right now the police may know more than we do, but as far as what we know, what was the other part of your question?
Well, just that. I mean, what do you think would be the motive and who are the people? So there's, I think, 5 people that are wanted in this investigation. U.S. Marshals, FBI, ALEA, and Huntsville Police Department are all active in this investigation. You can go to ALEA, which is Alabama's law enforcement agency, and they have a flyer there with all of their identities and their names and information. And then I would say robbery is probably the motive. I think this could have happened to anybody in this town. I don't think that it was like, we don't know of any connection with Ronnie and any of the people, but it was a week before Christmas. People are feeling festive. Ronnie's the kind of guy that just likes to hang out, have a good time. So I think he was probably convinced, to hang out, and then they were waiting on him or they had other motive or intentions, and he fell victim to that. And then we also have been asked by Rachel. Rachel, is a great question. Is the officer black? No, he is not. He is definitely not a black officer. So he is white. And
But I will, surprisingly, I will put this out there that there were black detectives that said the same thing, that Ronnie walked away, that believed the same thing at one point. So we can't just assume it's racially biased because the black officers were saying it too.
no, I don't think it's actually racially biased. But I think that it was assumed that he is just like when you say he's a good father and things like that, right? That's
They,
against the
I think,
stereotype.
yeah, I think they didn't know how in depth we really meant by a good father. Like, seriously.
It's possible. It's
It was
possible
the
you can be
cognitive
black and be
bias.
a great father. Why is
Yeah,
that
that
hard to believe?
cognitive bias was heavy. People want to use stereotypes all the time, but one thing that people need to understand is human nature. They love drama. Beings love drama. They love the negative things. So that's what people hone in on. So you're going to see more of broken homes. You're going to hear more about fathers that's not involved, single mothers and things of that nature. But there are so many families that are actually whole and maybe in a different capacity of other homes that you may normally see as a whole family, or what you deem as a whole family because of your upbringing, or what is, you know, made to be the picture of. But, it's that understanding that you're going to see more of the negative versus the positive because of what media wants to spin in general, and because of what society loves to pay attention to. It's not as fun to see a father who just loves his kids so much, who's home with his children, listening, talking to them and teaching them and, really working on legacy and working on building those trust and, his everything. They don't want it. It's not fun to see that. It's fun to see a father who, oh, he not with his kids, so now we can talk about him. Oh, he don't want to be with his girls. Now we can talk about him. The deadbeat dad. He ain't trying to do nothing.
But
It's fun
against
for
popular
people for
belief,
some
black
reason.
men are home with their children. Against popular
Exactly.
belief, against what society is pushing out, a narrative that's being pushed out, black men are home with their children.
Yep.
I know several black fathers that are the primary caregivers for their children. Like,
Yep.
this narrative really needs to change because they are home with their children or they're active in their lives.
Yep.
Like, this shouldn't be a surprise anymore. In today's society, people aren't just going out for milk and not coming home and you don't know where they are.
Exactly.
In the age of technology, we know where you are. We know where you are going to be. We can find you. Like,
Yeah. And that's just the issue, with the cops. No, it is technically still racially motivated. The cognitive bias is due to the racial biases as well, because of, oh, he's a black man, he just decided to go. Because I'm sorry. I don't like to get into race wars or anything, and I'm not going to do that now. But I'm seeing a whole bunch of missing people. And I'm also seeing the different types of care and concern that's related to these certain cases. Even in Alabama, I'm not even talking other states because I have every news station for Alabama, every news station for Tennessee are pinned to my phone so that I can see everything that pops up watching for this case. So I'm seeing them in Alabama and they're handled differently and quickly and more information and things of that nature. And so it's like, while we don't want to get into the race, but it also does play a part of the cognitive bias as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't I wouldn't lead with saying that may be primary, but it does play a role, and I agree with you there. And then also what a lot of people have to realize, like you all said, in today's society, it's okay to understand and accept just because someone may have a failed relationship and they're not living directly in the household, it's still possible to be a very good dad or mom.
And Ronnie is a great dad. Ronnie is a
Absolutely.
wonderful dad. Demetrius
Absolutely.
White says he's a good guy. He worked for me at KFC and Taco Bell. He was my guy. And then Joy Elise has a great question. She says, so why is he out of jail in the first place? And I think she's talking about Quintarius. We know that Quintarius was due in court Friday. He's out on a very low bond for human trafficking. He had several charges. So I'm interested to know if Quintarius made that court date. I doubt that we would be notified if any arrests are made in this case. But that was definitely a question. And then why one of those suspects is being charged with receiving stolen property, that information's part of the investigation. We don't have it. They haven't told us. And then not all human beings love drama, young lady, not at all. I think it's a special kind of person that likes the foolishness and negativity. Most of us want peace in life. Ellis, I would say you're right. Not all human beings love drama. But I'm going to double down and say most do. And that is definitely something that I can say, being that I work in true crime and, we focus on true crime stories. It's so popular because people do love drama. And I don't think people realize that, every day people wake up and the first thing they do is go to the bathroom and they check their cell phone and they realize that there's spotlights of a crime story. And these are real people, these are real cases, these are real families. And, it's bad that sometimes sometimes people don't realize the impact that these crimes have. So this family is so desperate to get Ronnie back. His kids, I just think about, the girls walking down the aisle and not having their father. And, you know, hopefully I'll be in the room that day. But Ronnie needs to be there, and or at least his children need to know what happened to him and have closure. So we're very desperate to get that. And then the timeline of the case and where can people follow it? Blunt Force Media is totally committed to this family and to Ronnie's case. So we keep updating the information as it comes out. We don't get information often and it's not fluid. So there may be, there may be time where we don't have information coming out, and that just means that we don't have any information. You're more than welcome to contact us and ask, if you have any questions about this case. But people can go to bluntforcemedia.com and get information about it. And I think, if the family is notified of any information that we can share with the public, that'll be the first place that it's made available. So anything else you guys want to get out there? I'm so thankful that y'all sat down with me to do this tonight. I know I've asked you a bunch of times and I know it's hard, but it's actually been nice to have all of you together and to talk about Ronnie.
Yeah, this was nice to do. One thing that I just want to say or address is for all of us, the kids and the family, we do appreciate all the support and the love from the community. And again, just reiterating that um Ronnie is a good person to us, as far as just all around. He was definitely the center of keeping the family together, making sure everybody was all good and on one accord. And the bigger goal was growth and to better ourselves. So we just want him home and we want answers. And hopefully we get that. And also, like I said before, that the people that are responsible, that they are held accountable. And I know y'all can't sleep at night.
I
I know
hope
y'all,
not.
right.
I hope not. And James, you're going to keep working this case and keep following up on tips.
Yep, we're still on it. We're still talking to people. We've got some people that not comfortable talking to the police, and
Yeah.
we're talking to them and anybody, and we keep that confidential. So if anybody else wants to reach out, uh, if you don't want your name put out there, we don't put it out there. So anybody else that wants to reach out, we'll be glad to talk. We're still looking into things, still talking to folks. So.
And it's interesting, you actually work in defense as well. So, there's an incredible opportunity that people have by reaching out to you. And your former HPD, you were law enforcement for a long time. So that gives them a little bit of wiggle room, right? Wouldn't you say?
I would definitely say reach out and let's talk.
That's James at Magna Investigative Group in Huntsville. So I miss you guys. I'm actually gone covering another case right now and a trial in South Carolina, but I'll be back in a couple of weeks. And so I can't wait to see all of you. And hopefully we get more tips in the meantime and we're able to find Ronnie. I cannot believe it's been 60 days. It's a nightmare. So thanks everyone. And we'll do this again if we need to. And if anybody has any questions, reach out to us at press@bluntforcemedia.com. Stay tuned to our website for updates on this case. And keep this family in your thoughts, because not a moment goes by that we're not working on this and his kids aren't thinking about him and his family's not desperate to bring him home. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Troy. Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Thank
y'all.
you so
That was